Welcome to another program in our series, Free Thinking Forum. I'm Bill Weir, producer and today co-host, and I'm glad to have with me Jim Jurewicz as my co-host. He's been a guest on previously, and you will be telling us a little bit about the Story Foundation. But I also want to welcome you, Bill. Will Palaia, and Jim, you'll be interviewing him, okay?
Correct.
So,
Right.
How should we begin, Jim?
Well, I think we should identify the fact that we're continuing in the series of military vet support programming. And
We'll be talking about civilian support of military veterans.
correct. So today we're going to identify how how civilians can address one of the biggest problems out there, and that is the homelessness of military vets.
Good.
25% of all homeless people are military related. So we're going to address that.
Go ahead.
All right. So thank you for the introduction, Bill. And so today we're speaking on behalf of the Proud Foundation, which is a military veteran named Jeffrey Proud, who has decided to dedicate his foundation to helping military vets. And the big problem that we have is that there are 20 million military veterans, and the majority of them, or a lot of them, excuse me, are having difficulty making transition back into civilian life. And so consequently, we have some disastrous implications, like a suicide rate of 20 people a day killing themselves because they can't make the transition. So that's one of the problems. And then the other major problem is the fact that out of all of the homeless people that are out there, 25% of them are related to military vets. So we, as the Proud Foundation, have created a program called the Proud Veteran Outreach. And the Proud Veteran Outreach is an invitation to civilians to not only get educated, but become engaged in helping seek out those military veterans that are drifting or lost. And so we all know somebody who is either the parent of a military vet or maybe our neighbor, and it's important that we all get engaged with them so that this isn't just a military problem, or this isn't just an issue that's being dealt with by parents of military vets, but that we all can participate in this solution.
Good.
So with that, today we're going to focus specifically on homelessness. And so we have our guest, Will Palaia.
Yeah, that's right.
Sorry,
A lot of vowels.
from ShelterUs, and I have met Will in the marketplace, in that we're both passionate entrepreneurs and offering support to the community to try and help independent entrepreneurs become more successful. And Will had a passion and a vision to a problem, a major problem. So rather than me interpret that problem, I'm going to let Will make the introduction to the new company he started called ShelterUs, and how it works and how it can deal with us. So please, Will, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And please introduce ShelterUs and who you are and why you're doing what you're doing.
Okay, yeah, and thank you so much for having me on this program. You know, everything that we can do to draw attention to this problem and find solutions, you know, is so desperately needed. Like, you know, most civilians, I interact and see homelessness on an everyday basis. It seems like it's more prevalent these days. With things that are going on, there's an increase in social media and things like that, so that we have more visibility into the problem. and not a lot of solutions have been coming out. And after my experience in seeing what was going on here in the Twin Cities with the Hiawatha tent homeless encampment, I wanted to be able to do something about it. And so I came up with an idea, and it just so happened at the same time Techstars had a startup weekend here in the Twin Cities, and I was like, this is a great opportunity for me to be able to bring this idea in. It gives me basically a weekend incubator to be able to pull this idea together, and I did. The minimum viable product is what they like to make, and what's the smallest solution that you can create and get out into the hands of the public, was to find a way for people to make it easier to find homeless shelters. But it's really a much greater problem than that. I did win the startup weekend, which was wonderful. It basically opened up the doors to a lot of opportunities to be able to develop the solution and be able to get it out there into the hands of the homeless. The issue has been in the past, the technology is there. It's just a difficulty in getting the users or the homeless to be able to use the solution in order to make their lives easier. And despite millions of dollars being thrown at it, on an annual basis, very little has been done, in the past decade at least. And what this does is it allows the homeless to be able to have a free phone, and through that phone they access our app. The internet provider in this city allows free access to the application so that they don't have to worry about connecting to it. And what it does is it allows them to basically sign up once and be able to access all the resources that are currently available to the homeless, which seems like something that should have been done a long time ago, yet it hasn't. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be able to do so. Seeing what's going on currently, and especially here in Minnesota, every day it's getting colder, and we've had issues even with fire in the encampment, which happened yesterday. There has to be a better way, and from that, we're just developing it and trying to reach out to all the different people that make up the homeless population, and a great deal of them are our homeless veterans.
Great. So what you said was obviously you were addressing the solution to the problem, and obviously I'm sure you're not naive enough to think that you have the solution, but the fact that you can contribute to the reduction of homelessness.
Correct.
So it's a monster problem.
It is. It's a monster problem, but any movement in the right direction is good. Basically what this does is it takes all the information that's already in the system and puts it into the hands of the homeless, so that it makes it so much easier for them to be able to just walk into a homeless shelter and know that there's a bed waiting for them, and that it hasn't been booked before they showed up, and so many other roadblocks that they go into just on a daily basis. And so just very grateful for the opportunity to be able to make this contribution.
So what exactly does your app do? How
Okay.
does it work, and how can the civilian out there understand how it works so that they can share it by word of mouth, how to...
Sure, of course. Well, it's an app, and it's a service that goes through that app. What they do is they access it through their phone. What it does on the back end is it connects them into the homeless management information system that already has all of their data, and connects that to all the various disparate resources that are out there, and pulls it into one place and makes it easier for them to be able to gain access to them. The nice thing is that there's varying levels of the use of this app. If they're savvy enough to be able to use the smartphone, they'll have options. We'll have a Waze type map where it'll actually guide them to where they need to go. If they don't, It will leverage SMS and messaging to be able to get them where they need to go. And if they can't use a phone, they'll have a bracelet that uses sensor technology so that when they go to these various places, instead of having to sit down in front of a computer, with someone in intake, they can basically just wave their wrist and be able to gain access.
So can you talk a little deeper about that database that you said, because it sounds like you insinuate that they're already registered.
Correct. There's something called the Homeless Management Information System. It's actually been out there for decades. It's a very old system, but it's used for everything from the homeless population all the way to every citizen. You don't really need to sign up for it. As long as you're a citizen of the United States and you pay taxes, you're technically in the system. You just haven't been designated as homeless. And when you do so, what our service would provide is that all that information would then be accessed at one point that gives the homeless more control over their personal information and ultimately their destiny. The part that's great for society is it takes those people who are not engaged in society and pulls them back in again so that they can, take advantage of all the other services that are out there, from food to education to, substance and psychological treatment and so much more. What we're doing at ShelterUs is adding an additional layer to that, which will provide them an ability to be able to earn, spend and save money outside of a traditional banking system, which tends to be out of reach to most citizens in need.
So the Hiawatha encampment triggered a passion in you, and I'm sure it created an awareness that the homeless is a much bigger problem than just that encampment. The majority of us probably only see homeless people on street corners asking for handouts. What is your awareness now of where the homeless issue is beyond the street corners and the encampment?
No, that's a great question. Before this, I was, like the average person that, I saw homelessness as, what you saw on television or maybe someone that I interacted with when I walked through the city. Since then, I've learned that it's a much greater problem than that, and it's extremely complex. And just because you have certain criteria, be it inability to earn income or maybe have some psychological or other issues, there's so many more. It's almost a spectrum of homelessness. And a great example would be look at the tents and the shelters that are now in California with all of those displaced citizens due to the fires. Those people are technically homeless, and so it's so much bigger than I thought even 1 month ago when I started this.
So there's also things like the food shelters or Catholic charities, things like that, that have outreach. When you become aware that there's a military vet that's homeless, if they cluster like they do, they feel more comfortable around other military vets. It would stand to reason that when you find one military vet homeless, you're going to find multiples. So as citizens, we should be aware of the fact that one leads to two and two leads to four, and be prepared to invite other people to help you with that solution. So
yeah, I totally agree.
We're also interested in trying to create some kind of sponsorship program. If there could be a one-on-one sponsorship for, when the Vietnam War was going on, there was POWs and people were wearing bracelets for lost soldiers, and one day their bodies were recovered, and the bracelet was a reminder. If we could develop that kind of a program, would ShelterUs contribute to that?
We definitely would. Ultimately, the user of the product is the homeless, but it would be up to the government to actually provide the service. I know, you know, as a civilian, you know, I donate to, you know, a number of charities like, you know, like Cross or other ones where they provide food for low-income families and the homeless, and this could definitely be something like that, because, you know, it's so much bigger than most people can comprehend, but when you educate everyone, it can be something that possibly is manageable and something that we can overcome.
And so are you open to other people's ideas or brainstorms to contribute to the solution?
Absolutely.
I look at something like if I had a token, you know, with ShelterUs on it, and that when you're passing somebody on the street corner, if you could hand them that token, then they could call in or access the app, and also maybe that token could track that person as long as they have that sensor in their pocket.
Yes, absolutely. That would be a great opportunity. The app also has a web version, so if they go to, say, the public library or somewhere where they have access to the internet, they'd be able to access all the features that they would were they to have you know, a device in hand. Ultimately, the goal is that when someone does become homeless and they're able to have somebody outreach, as you said, you know, they would be able to then get, you know, either a phone or some type of a sensor that they would be able to, you know, use to be able to access all of these services. You know, because right now, for them to get food, a place to stay, education, you know, maybe you know, other health services, you know, there's so many different places they have to go, and if you're homeless, you know, that's a very daunting task.
So I know that you've moved very rapidly in the course of 1 month, because
1 month.
this has gone, I know Startup Week goes idea to concept in 54 hours.
Correct.
And you've experienced that, so.
Yeah, that was on the 5th, yes.
Did you watch the passion for your idea grow with the other people that were in that weekend?
Ultimately, yes, but initially I had a lot of pushback. I started with a team of 7 people on Friday nights, and by Sunday it was me and 2 other people. Because people, you know, they thought it was, you know, not something that was, you know, marketable. It wasn't something that they were interested in, and so they kind of dropped off, which was fine. But at the very end, when I was judged, it was unanimous decision, and I was so grateful.
So this is not just a Twin Cities issue. So
No.
What is your intent, or what is the response you're getting to what did they say, scale this?
Sure.
To other cities? And
Sure. Yeah, I've been very fortunate, you know, that you know, companies like Thomson Reuters and McKinsey and Company have stepped in and are helping, you know, pull this together, because it is national. And ideally, you know, we want to be able to have this rolled out for everyone and not just the Twin Cities. But it began here because I live here, and you know, I start with things that I see every day, and you know, the Startup Weekend was a great opportunity to take that idea, you know, based on, you know, something I'm very passionate about, and be able to bring it to reality in a very quick way. And but I know that there's no quick solution to this, and it's going to, you know, it's going to take, you know, it's going to take an army.
well, government provides one.
That's right.
How about military vets themselves? Have any of them realized what you're doing and offered some support or effort to contribute to accelerating your outreach?
Sure. Even though this is, you know, a month in, I met you.
You did, right? Yes, and I'm passionate about solving this problem. So,
Agreed.
And if you know you've got this outreach, then the morality of the military vet out there can be enhanced. Their pride will grow, and hopefully it will contribute to the reduction in the suicide rates.
Yeah, that would be great. And one thing I've learned, and you know, just from me working in business, that most people want to be able to serve themselves, you know, and not necessarily have people tell them what to do. And that's why self-service has been so popular, you know, in technology and in retail and things like that. that's what this does. It allows them to take all that information that they've already provided, puts it into their hands, so they have some feeling of control over their destiny. And I think that's so important, just to your spirit.
So, what is the app again? What is it called, and how do you access it?
Sure. If you go to ShelterUs.co, you can go and put your name in, and you get a link to download the app. Ultimately, what I'm hoping is that when a homeless person does their first interview for intake, that information will be provided to them. But we're a few steps away from that.
Okay, and through American Legions and VFWs, we have senior or baby boomer military vets, and some of them are not as technology comfortable.
Okay.
So if somebody wanted to pick up the phone and call you, are you receptive to processing those phone calls?
Absolutely. 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Yep.
And what would the phone number be that they should call?
That phone number would be 612-217-0107.
Great. So where do we go from here? What's the next thing you would like the civilian to do to help you with your cause and evangelize this message? Do you want outreach to churches and schools, and how do you want to?
At this point, I just want as many people to learn about it as possible. To reach out. I mean, the more people that engage and sign up for the app, the better, because it's really strength in numbers.
Great. And so, how about corporations? There's a lot of corporations that have military advocate programs, such as General Mills. Have you thought about reaching out to them? Are they target audiences or markets that you're interested in pursuing help from?
Absolutely. And since the end of Startup Weekend, I have been getting various large corporations reaching out to me in this regard, and in the process of coordinating with them to find the best solution. Initially, I'm going to be working with McKinsey. We're tightening up our business plan and getting kind of all our ducks in a row. And when we do our launch, we'll be using Thomson Reuters and a few other large companies to help in the rollout.
So with that, you need to have a business plan. So
Correct.
Where does the revenue come from to allow you to keep on going forward with this?
Well, being that it's a technology product, it would be considered software as a service. And what that means is that it's almost like a lease, where you would pay a certain amount per user per month, and the government would pay for that. And so each user of the app would not have to pay for it. They get all the, they get the free phone, they get the free internet access, they get all the tools for free, but the government would pay for it, on a per user basis. And when you do the math on that, it is far less expensive than what is being thrown at the problem right now, with no solution in sight.
And so then, therefore, are you a for-profit or a non-profit company?
Well, at this point, it would be a for-profit company. But ultimately, what I'd like to see is, hopefully our solution may be being picked up, by the government or by a large organization, and then and them taking it from there, and then they can designate whether or not it's for-profit or not.
Great. And locally in the community, we have these benefit companies, and some of those benefit companies, I know one in particular is like Peace Coffee, they do some outreach to purpose in life. And are those kinds of companies things that can participate in your organization?
Absolutely. The way we have it set up now, we would be using, a large, company to be able to provide this SaaS product. But ultimately, what we would want is potentially, have that be considered an on-premise solution, so that the city can be able to have that system on servers, or it could be, you know, in another format, but it all costs money.
And how does your marketing campaign, you know, point of purchase or doing some, you know, bus shelter announcements, things like that? What is your intent or plan on you know, evangelizing your message?
Sure. Because we won TechStars, we have the opportunity to work with some of the companies here in town, you know, design and marketing agencies, and in the process of organizing with them, you know, what our go-to market strategy would be. But being that we're just 4 weeks into it, we're just getting started.
All right. So then I assume you'll have a social media campaign as well. Do you have a Facebook page now? Or?
We don't have a Facebook page now, but we do have a LinkedIn. You can go there, and a link to that is through the ShelterUs.co website. We also have an Angel Co link, which enables people to be able to donate their time and efforts from a technology standpoint to helping ShelterUs.
Great. So I think we have really been inspired with the fact that homelessness isn't just something we can turn our head to. It's there's a solution that we can really incorporate pretty easily because of your passion to find a solution, or at least reduce the problem.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. I mean, you know, the technology's there. The awareness is an issue that we're working on, especially, you know, in programs like this, getting the word out. And it's something, when you see a homeless person, you don't want them to be that way. And everyone has a story. You know, everyone has a reason for where they are at any particular time. But the goal here is to get everyone who is homeless and lift them up and put them back into society.
I want to thank you very much. Will, you have a marvelous vision that you're already hard at work fulfilling. And it will be such a great example of civilian support of military veterans. And I want people to know that they can see this program again, or refer other people to it on YouTube.
Great.
So it will be on there probably by the time you see the program. So, and thank you too, Jim. You did a great job as our co-host in the absence of my voice today.
Thank you very much, Bill, for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah,
And thank you for tuning in. Usually